Welcome back to episode 7 of the Girl Stop Playing podcast, where we encourage you to stop playing with your potential and start working for what you want in life and in love. Who better to help you work for what you want in love than a couple who's been married for over 30 years, together 40 years, married 850 couples, counseled thousands of couples, literally helping us save our marriages before they even get started. Welcome to the show, Michael and Lorraine Forrester.
Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for having us.
Yes, so this is going to be a good conversation. Let me just tell y'all know y'all get all up in my business here on the show. I'm okay with that. But I could not let Kendrick be a part of this episode because these happen to be our pre and post marital counselors, as well as the officiants for our wedding. And he might have tried to tell y'all a little bit too much of my business because I be acting up and getting in trouble. So I'm going to do this show solo. I'm excited to talk to y'all, though.
Okay, we're excited too.
So being in your space where you are all up in everybody's business so much, what do you feel like is, I guess, the number one need or the number one reason why people find you? Like, because I know, when I found you, it was like middle of the night, like, let me find a resource. What about you? How do most people find you?
And oftentimes it is the middle of the night when we see the messages come in. Most of the time it's because of communication, which is that thread that goes through everything that we do in relationship. So we have to break down some old forms of communication and share some new things.
And I was just going to say, oftentimes when people are at their wits' end, they don't know what else to do in terms of the marital portion of it. That, they just trying to grab at straws, trying to see what resource that they can, pull, in order to be able to possibly save their marriage.
And so before we get too deep in the conversation, how do you all define premarital counseling? Because I kind of feel like it's a thing that people just know about, but there might be someone watching who isn't familiar with the concept.
So we know that marriage is supposed to last for a lifetime, but divorce often happens. So we decided to take that D from divorce and use it in what we do. So we discover, we discuss, and we determine in premarital counseling. So you want to talk a little bit about the discovery?
Right. Yeah, in the discovery portion of it, in the relationship. In the courtship portion of it, we oftentimes do not look at those areas that maybe even, cause us a little bit of concern, right? So the conversations aren't happening. With the premarital counseling, hopefully we're reaching to discover some of those areas where couples may not have, thought about particular things that need to be addressed. So that's, the discovery portion of it.
Then we chat about it and we discuss, we look at the different filters that each person has come through. We look at some of the things that they've seen in marriages and so forth, and we have those discussions, and then we determine what's the best action going forward.
So it's not a cookie cutter, one size fits all. Everybody who comes through the door is getting this one thing.
No, it's not that at all.
Do you find that typically both parties in the couple are like willing and they're here, they're showing up because this is something that we've come to the conclusion that we want to do together? Or is there usually one that's like kicking and screaming through the door?
There is a mixture.
Okay.
There are times where, you have guys who, definitely are seeking success in their relationship and they have a willingness to do it. Then there are the others.
Small number of guys.
That's a small number. But then the others that, because it's something that's important to their mate, they make the decision to, go along. And then, they actually feel that they derive some benefit from it, from conversations that we have, because we like to be objective in our discussions. Yeah.
And that's something that comes up often because women always have these conversations. We're always going to the things, having the retreats, going to the church groups. Like we're always having these conversations, whereas men are like at the barbershop, at the gym, like y'all are talking, but y'all aren't necessarily talking about how you can improve your marriage or how you can improve the women that you're attracting. What is the resource out there for men who need a resource, but is there a resource, or do they just, he's
the resource.
plug?
Yeah, I often do, man-to-man sessions, with guys, whether you're married or single, people who are teens, people who are just seeking to, have some self-improvement.
Or even just having an outlet.
Right.
Because a lot of times even with regular therapy, a lot of times we get to the point where we realize like we're hitting a brick wall because we've done what we can do with what we have. Like you can only get yourself so far, and at some point you need someone outside of you, someone who can be objective and can see the things that you can't always see.
Right.
But that's not necessarily the most comfortable thing. In the Black community, there's a whole stigma with, you got to be crazy to go to therapy and ask for help and talk to people and telling your business and all of the things. So how do we get over that hump? Because if you can't even put your pride aside to put yourself into therapy, a lot of times it's going to be a struggle to say, I need help and you need help. Let's go do this together.
Right. And a lot of times when people come to us, it's the woman that comes, and then we will share with her, and she's like, well, I don't know if my husband is going to come. I don't know if my fiance is going to come. And usually when I share with them the fact that my husband is there, and you have the male and the female perspective, then they are more interested. And then a lot of times we'll say, just ask them to come one time. If they come one time, we can encourage them to come. And most of the time when guys come and they're there, they start talking, and when they get ready to go, they're like, I didn't realize it was going to be this way, and I'm glad I came.
And and I'll just have to say, there's a presupposition, I guess I could say that, for regarding counseling, the stigma attached to it. Because I know when we were going through hell in our relationship and we sought counseling, that, that was my feeling. I'm not going to share my business with these folks. They don't know me, so on and so forth. But, I believe that, once we start learning to do better, we start actually sharing, with others that there is something better. Situations with guys that, if they derive some benefit from counseling, it's imperative that they should share that with a buddy, who might not want to, share with their family or stuff like that, their deep, dark stuff that, they need a form of, to be able to release that.
Got to get out of our own way, though, because if we are going to get to that next level, especially if we're going to do it in a healthy way, because people are still getting married, we're still having kids, we're still doing the things, but if we want to do it in the best way, if we want to position ourselves to be prepared to do it, then I definitely think, it can never hurt to prepare yourself. But I will say, there's definitely a stigma around therapy. Going to the wrong therapist, though, can be worse than not going to therapy at all, because you can get in front of someone that can frustrate you to the point where it's like, I'm more stressed out when I leave than I was when I came. So I think for us, too, that is an idea of, what is it going to be like? Are they going to judge me? What are they going to ask me? That type of thing. So I do think that you all disarm people very, very well, because you are so transparent and honest. And just as you mentioned, you share your own ish, you share what you've been through in a way that makes people feel like, well, made me feel like, well, damn, if they'd have been through that. I think I literally
I had problems.
I pressed mute and was like, well, damn, baby, if they'd have been through this, we gonna be all right. We gonna be all right. But it disarms you, because it's like not that there's nothing. I don't want to try to put y'all business out there like that, but I felt like, well, we could tell them anything that we've been through, and they not only they won't judge me, but they can help us because they've experienced something similar. And I think a lot of times with coaches or therapists or teachers, you're talking like over people's heads. And people aren't comfortable because they don't feel like you can relate.
Right.
And that's one of the things that's been important for me, because I know one of the struggles that I had early when we were going through, it was holding on to my stuff, right? Not being transparent, being in bondage. And I just have to say, once I put it out there, it did not matter to me who was judging me or anything like that. Hey,
it is what it is.
That's my truth. Hey, I'm working to better. So that's just it. I'm not ashamed of anything.
A lot of work.
But, a lot of work.
So listen, if y'all ain't ashamed,
a lot of work to do. We ain't even ashamed.
They not even ashamed. So let's go on and let's get into. Okay, so no, I'm not gonna have y'all tell all of your business, but because I have a question here around like deal breakers. Sure. I know some of the things that you've been through that would definitely be on someone else's list as deal breakers. So the first part of the question is, do you believe there are deal breakers in marriage? And then the second part, do you mind sharing just a little piece of something that I'm going to say survived?
Yeah.
Something that you all have survived together because to still be here, not just healthy and happy together, but to be investing in other couples' health and happiness is just a testament to, you know, what God can do when you keep God first in your relationship.
I think deal breakers are definitely important because, first of all, you have to determine who you are and what your standards are before you give somebody else your deal breakers. So I gave this cutie pie here my deal breakers, and they were, 1, if you ever do heavy drugs, we're done. If you ever cheat on me, we're done. Period.
Maybe the weed smoker was okay with.
Yeah, he smoked weed then.
That's a light drug.
Because,
He said heavy.
yeah, heavy drugs, right? So my mother was a strong black woman. She raised 4 kids after my father passed away. Before he passed away, he taught me that the world belonged to me and I was his little girl. So I had, you know, my head was out here. Whatever I wanted, I could have it. So I was serious when I told him that. But at some point, he decided that he wanted to be a thot. He also decided that he wanted to do cocaine. This was in year 9.
You said that a nicer way than you told me the story.
Okay. He was the crackhead for 3 years.
That was nice.
And it really shook me because that's not what he came from. His mother, his father had been together. They were very, had high standards and all that. I checked off every block when I said yes to him. So year 9, after everybody had filled our head with, you guys are the perfect couple. You get along so well. And I wake up one morning and find out he's not all that. You know, that pedestal I put him on, he didn't belong there. So I feel like the fact that I had the deal breakers, though, I still maintained that I was not going to tolerate it. There were several things that happened that kept me there, and I saw the progress that he worked on not being a thot. He stopped doing the crack, and I looked at the progress, and that's how I stayed. So when people come into relationships, we often tell them, if you don't see any progress, then you need to walk away. If you see progress and change, then you can stay a little bit longer.
So deal breakers are important. Are there, so then is there, because in my mind, deal breaker means if you do it, the deal has been broken.
Exactly.
But the deal was not broken. So is there still some other higher level crime offense that's like, okay, but now that, no ma'am, you know, like I'm out of here? Or how do you advise your couples, I guess?
So I advise them to make sure, because nobody's perfect. You're going to encounter some things that you did not expect. You know, some people will say my deal breaker is that he put his mother before me and I'm not going to tolerate that in marriage. Well, you say that when you first get married and you mean it, but 10 years into the marriage, when you have had a pretty good run so far, but now something changes, do you just walk away? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. So we definitely counsel couples sometimes that maybe divorce is your only option. So, and if there's abuse and there's adultery, you know, abandonment, those are things that you have to determine whether or not you can handle it.
Ooh, abuse, adultery, abandonment.
Yeah.
Okay.
And with abuse, we say whether you're going to stay or not, you need to get to a safe place before you make such a decision to stay. You should not stay in the same environment. You can move apart, get some counseling for 6 months to a year or more, and then you decide to come back together.
Gotcha.
That's for abuse.
Did you want to add something?
You know, but I think too, you know, especially with the deal breakers, you know, we cannot forget the spiritual component to this. We're spiritual beings going through this human experience, right? And it's important that, you know, before we make any decisions, you know, especially, you know, when it comes to calling it quits and just, you know, moving forward, you know, what is God saying to us about this decision that I'm making?
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little nervous when you say that you could be doing all good, and then 10 years in, you wake up and he's a crackhead. You know, like, no offense.
Hey,
but how do you avoid this? Is there a way to avoid it, or is that just life?
Yeah.
Like, people change.
And that higher power, I think, plays a big part in that. For me, I was done. I'd never seen that in my family, thank God, and I had not planned to see it in my home. But initially, Coriel, I got pregnant Haven't been pregnant in 7 years, and all of a sudden I'm pregnant. So I said, okay, I'll stay a little bit longer, see if I can work it out. Then after the pregnancy, a couple of other things happened like that, that I knew it was God telling me, be still, just wait. But that's not everybody's story. So when somebody comes to us and tells us that they're dealing with those things, we give them the truth. You know, chances are this is not going to work out as well as ours did unless you continue. Both of you continue with a relationship with God and know what He wants, what God wants you to do.
So I think that comes up a lot.
No.
I think that comes up a lot too when and I'm going to say the woman just because I'm assuming this is how it typically is, but the woman feels like I'm doing all the things, I'm going to the therapy, I'm reading the books, I'm doing the things, and then you're not pulling your weight. What do you do in that situation? Is that because the lack of effort means lack of interest, right? Like, how do you gauge that?
Well, I'm sure you know. You probably can get your husband to do anything you want him to do if you try, right? Most of the time, men are not that difficult to encourage to do better. We just have to get past our pride in terms of what we will do. Because I went from calling him a crackhead to calling him a mighty man of God, a warrior, even before he was acting that way. And that was some of the transition, my encouragement, my belief in him. And a lot of times that will help the man to make some changes. And of course, there are a lot more details to that.
Do you have advice on when a woman should, or how a woman could recognize, like, this man is just wasting my time? Or does it come down to seeing the progress?
It does come down to seeing the progress. You know, if there is no effort being made, you know, surely, you know, the woman has a responsibility to, you know, do the best that she can, all that she could do, right? But there comes a point at times where, and it comes to what is God telling you, right? You know, sometimes it is that, you know, you've made your an extended effort doing the best that you can, but there is no response, no efforts being made. And that in itself really is abandonment. If there's no willingness, you know, to add to the relationship, you know, it might just be time to call it quits.
Call it quits. So you mentioned a couple things that I want to just point out, because we often talk about, like, relationship issues stemming from, you know, you got daddy issues, you grew up in a single parent home, which can definitely have a negative effect on your future relationships.
Right.
But on the flip side of that, growing up in a 2-parent home that's not healthy can definitely have a negative effect on your relationships.
Yes.
Growing up with a daddy that gives you the world, tells you can do no wrong, can have a negative effect on your relationship with the husband, right? Or even finding the man of your dreams, putting him on this pedestal of being the man of your dreams, and then, you know, allowing that pedestal to cause you disappointment, that can cause, you know, a negative effect on your relationship. So how can we provide positive experiences for our children without those positive experiences turning negative later? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And definitely a lot of communication, you know, and we always go back to, if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. So if you and your mate are on the same page, that you talk about some things in advance like we do in premarital counseling. Let's talk about the level of peace you want in your home. Let's think about what will happen if this happens one day. How are you going to handle it? Are you going to go in the room and close the door, or are you just going to start yelling and screaming while the children are sitting there wondering what's going on with mom and dad? So we talk about some of those things in advance so you can make some decisions about how you handle them later.
And you know, it's definitely imperative for the, you know, couple to make sure that what they're demonstrating in the home, you know, will not have some type of ill effect later on in the child's life. You know, we know that there are going to be times where, you know, they'll experience or they'll witness some negative behavior, right? But that should not be the norm. Right? The consistent thing should be, you know, a demonstration of love and respect in the home, you know, in front of the children. And for it to be real, that it's not just something that's, you know, we show one thing out in the street and then at home, it's just something totally different.
Story.
It's just a consistent, you know, love, thread of love that goes through.
So since we are trying to save marriages before they start, you mentioned spirituality. What are some other, I guess, important conversations or some other things that we should take into consideration when we are, you know, exploring a potential mate? what are some things that you've seen come up that you're like, well, y'all should probably talked about that, before y'all talk to us, y'all should have talked about that. What are some of those things that people could be talking about to avoid some of the stuff later?
Yeah, definitely finances. That's something that couples don't always talk about up front. I don't want to know your business. I don't want to get in your business and all of that. But you're going to be spending your life together. So you might as well accept the reality that your business is my business.
Right.
And if your mate doesn't want to talk about those finances, maybe that's a red flag, So you have to really consider that. Being open and honest is what it takes to have longevity in your relationship. Yeah.
And a willingness really, to have that transparency in your relationship. If you have someone who is, maybe somewhat secretive about, their past experiences and, all these different things, that would really, require some consideration.
Yeah.
Do I really want to, be involved in a relationship with this person?
And sex is definitely a topic that needs to be talked about.
Right.
And prior to
expectations.
The expectations in the relationship, a lot of times we have different expectations. A lot of times guys will come to us and say, before we got married, it was off the hook. Then we got married, all of a sudden she doesn't want to do it anymore. And sometimes we have the same thing from women. He was there all the time. Now he hardly even looks at me. So now we talk about those things in advance so that when that happens, you have some go-to methods.
So you mentioned, after however many years, somebody suddenly changing. Also the expectations, changing. And I think that happens oftentimes too when you've dated someone for so long and then you get married and you have all of these expectations and then it ends abruptly, as soon as you sign the papers, because now you expected, magic to happen. How do we, because I think it's just women who do this, how do we let go of unrealistic expectations so that we can grow, through our relationships?
And one thing that we advise couples to do is to have some conversations. Set aside specific time to talk about things where on a day-to-day basis, you're getting to know this person. Each day you're growing, you're changing. So if I'm talking to my husband every day or every 2 or 3 days, and I realize that a few days ago he learned to play chess, then I know something different about him, and I can allow him to grow. So when he tells me that over a period of time, something has been happening with him, then when something big happens, I pretty much knew or expected that. So we do change our expectations as we grow together. So we have to be in the process, or we have to consistently have those conversations and not necessarily sitting down telling the man, we need to talk. Guys always talk about they don't want to hear that. Just sit down and talk. You don't have to say that.
Do the warning.
Exactly.
So when it comes to roles and responsibilities, is that a common challenge where, the woman has an expectation of what a man does in a relationship and the man has an expectation of what a woman should be doing and they're not doing those things? What are some of the unrealistic expectations or the unspoken rules that you're seeing that we can avoid?
Yeah.
Well, in terms of the roles, we do know the things that have been the customary norms, where traditionally the wife takes care of the household needs, the husband takes care of the things that's, extended, material needs, the yard and all those different type of things. But, but the way society is nowadays, given careers being the way that they are, work schedules, a lot of stuff does not fit what it did 20, 30 years ago. It is not the same thing. So there's a need to have an adjustment there, right? And for the couple to have the conversations, what is realistic for us, right? Does there need to be a shift? Does the husband need to do more cooking? Does the wife need to do, whatever, right? Child care.
She never needs to empty the trash. She never needs to.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Child care, things like that, does there need to be a dual responsibility regarding that? How do you navigate through those different things? And we do believe that there is no cookie cutter, method, to do that. It's up to the couple to create their own template, for what their reality is, and try to do the best to navigate through that.
And we do encourage cross training.
Yeah.
So when you come into the relationship and you say you have certain strengths, my strength was managing the finances. His strength was just handing me the check. After a while, I was like, wait a minute, this is too much. I don't want to have to be responsible for all of this. And he kicked back like crazy. He was like, I do not want to do it. I'm giving you my check. Isn't that enough? I worked hard. I don't want to be on a computer when I get home. But I was very persistent and let him know I'm not doing it. And if Georgia Power doesn't get their money, it's going to be your fault. So he had to sit down with me and go through, learn how to use the computer and everything, and learn how to do it. And it's so freeing because I don't have to worry about it,
As a new mom, I'm just realizing that the things that women do on a daily basis, I mean, I will have the baby be lifting something with a toe, have something on top of my head, and get some groceries out the trunk at the same time. I will figure it out, and then
on the phone,
and on the phone. And the daddy would just shout out to, hey daddy. It's just different. It's just different. Yeah. Women are superheroes. Divorce in the Black community. Why is it like so prevalent? And what can we do about it?
Yeah, I think a lot of times we go into it thinking, well, if it doesn't work, we can leave. So a lot of people go into it with the idea of, I don't have to work at this. If it doesn't make me happy, I can walk away. And then a lot of times we haven't seen that in our future, in our homes. Mom and dad were not together, and then grandma and granddad wasn't together. A lot of our couples will say, my family was just a lot of women, and that's one of the reasons we're doing the same things that the generations before us did, and then we know that goes back to when they needed government assistance.
Men had to be outside of the home.
Exactly. So now, though, we are seeing a change in that, where Black couples are really working hard at loving each other more. And it's a great season for that.
It definitely is. And I think your resources, the resources that you provide, are definitely, a step in the right direction. When I started the Single Wives Club way back in 2011, just as a resource for strictly single women, not engaged, not even in a relationship most of the time, but just women who were just women who wanted to be wives, but did not have any resource to prepare. When I was looking for resources, there were zero out there. And the idea that in America, we prepare for everything else. We take a class for everything else. We get a certification, we get licenses, we spend money, we do all of the things. But when it comes to like the biggest decision you are going to make, who you marry and the children, being a mother and being a wife, we are just like, okay, I'm gonna do what feels good. I'm gonna figure it out. And then this is the results that we get. And like you mentioned, so many other women have similar stories to mine where they come from a family of women. And I'm no scientist, but I don't think women can reproduce with women. I know they're doing some strange things these days, but I don't think they're working on it. But I don't think that's a thing just yet. Yeah. So we're still having sex.
Yeah.
Right? Sex hasn't stopped, but marriage is like non-existent. Nobody has, is showing up with anybody but a baby. And that just was not going to be my story. But I knew that if I wanted something different, I was going to have to do something different. So as crazy as it seemed back then, I saw something different from myself. And I think it's so important to have these conversations, so important to see examples that look like us of people who can do it, who are figuring it out, who are not trying to pretend like they're perfect, who are saying, look, it's been rocky, it's been rough. We figuring this thing out. Come along with us and let us show you how to do it too. So definitely a needed resource.
And the thing that I think is good, like now, we're seeing more and more where, couples are, open to, do things the right way, right? To fight for their relationships. We know that there's in the past, we've had grandma and grandpa and mama, auntie, or whatever, who just kind of stayed in a relationship, even though it was dysfunctional, right? And that was sufficient. But what we're seeing now is, really that people. That's no longer acceptable for a lot of people. That if they're going to be in a relationship, they're going to try to do it the right way. And, we're seeing more and more examples of that, popping up. And I think, as that continues, us as a people will, be encouraged by that and continue to try to do things the right way instead of just being settled in a relationship, in a marriage.
I have to also ask you this. This wasn't on my notes, but I feel like it's such a hot question around staying for the kids. What is your advice? Does it matter how old the children are? Does it matter what the challenge is that you're working through? Like, what's your advice when someone comes to you and they say, we're going through X, Y, and Z, but I just had a baby. You know, we're going through X, Y, and Z, but we have 4 children. What role do the kids play in keeping the relationship together?
And the reality is they can play a very important role. And it is okay to stay for the kids some days. You know, if that's what holds you there to do the work that day, then it's okay. But if you're just going to argue, fuss, and fight with the kids there, you might as well leave. We have grown people come to our offices who are in their 30s and 40s, and they're saying, you know, I'm really messed up. My mom and dad should have divorced a long time ago, you know? And then we have those who come in there crying because their mother and father just got a divorce, and here it is, they're 20 years old, you know? So we have to, you know, look at each situation, but definitely some days you can stay for the kids, but the work should be happening. If the work is not happening, then you and the kids need to go or let the kids stay there or whatever. But the two of you don't need to be in the same household if it's toxic.
Because a toxic example is worse than no example.
Yes,
exactly.
Definitely.
So last question, is there, I mean, I know there's a such thing, I don't know if there's a such thing as post-marital counseling, but I know we done had some sessions post-marriage.
Yeah.
So I know you offer it as a resource, but is that a thing? Because as much as, I mean, you get like a discount, or the state gives you something for taking premarital counseling. Like
Right.
there's a benefit to doing it pre-marriage. But in my opinion, this is like a maintenance thing. Like,
It
I don't
is.
want to call y'all because I need you. I want to continuously have these conversations so that we don't ever
Yeah.
need you.
Right.
But is that a thing? Like, are people coming to see you before they need you, or are
Yes.
they waiting until 5
They
o'clock
come-
in the morning and they mad?
Right. Some of those. And then we have those who come for maintenance. You know, we have some that are on our calendar every month, whether something happens or not. They're there. And then we have those who schedule every quarter, whether something happens or not, they're there. And those are the ones who are most successful. We can look back at couples that we counseled 20 years ago who are still together, raising children. They're enjoying each other. And yes, I got some of those phone calls, you know, like one person, you know, she calls and she's like, I don't know what's going on. He is crazy, you know. And I'm like, and we've gotten video calls, you know, look at him right now. See what she's doing. See, did you hear what she said? I'm like, okay, did I give you my number, you know, at 2 o'clock in the morning? But, you know, definitely it's a good thing to have someone to reach out to, because if you don't do the counseling, then you're going to talk to your girlfriend.
Right. You're going to reach out to somebody.
You're going to talk to mom and them. You're going to talk to your boys. And chances are they're not in the same space you are, you know.
Chances are they ain't in the same bed you are, so you need to keep
Exactly.
them out of your business. Because
Yes.
tomorrow we're going to be back in this bed, and I'm over it.
Yeah.
Literally, I'm over it. And then my family's still mad at you. And guess what?
Exactly.
I'm over it.
Right.
You know, and then it's a whole, it's literally a whole thing. So I know that is probably a big conversation. We've had that conversation, just preventative. But I know that's a big thing that you all often, you know, talk about as well. So definitely something people can avoid.
Just like, you know, we go to the doctor for a checkup, you know, why not a
Whether
marital
something's
checkup?
wrong or not. Yeah.
You know, and just, you know, keep things fine-tuned and running, you know, like they should.
Yes. Listen, and ladies, Miss Lorraine here is not gonna let you off the hook, okay? Because the sex conversation is coming up, and she ain't playing no game. So
Not at all.
let the ladies and gentlemen. It's gonna be some men that's gonna be beating down your door too. Listen, last week we had the wife coach. Before I got home, a man had signed his wife up
Oh, yeah.
for her challenge. So I know it's gonna be some men reaching out to y'all, but let them know where they can find you on social media and online.
Okay, so on social media, they can find us on Instagram at arm_Michael and Lorraine. They can find us on Facebook, A Relationship Ministry. That's what the ARM is, the acronym for A Relationship Ministry. And where else are we? That's the main two places. And our website, definitely, arelationshipministry.com.
And I'm going to make it easy for you all. I'll make sure that I link all of their information below. I'm also going to be linking below www.koeswaitlist.com. That's KOES waitlist.com, because tomorrow I'm opening up registration for my 5-day Make More Money Challenge. I'm all about helping y'all make the money and get the honey. So tap in, koeswaitlist.com. It's going down April 10th through 14th. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to another episode. And if you have not subscribed, commented below, and liked this episode, girl, stop playing. Peace out. See you next week. Girl, hey, I hope you enjoyed that video. This channel is all about encouraging you to stop playing with your potential and start working for what you want in life and in love. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you'll be notified when the next video drops. And comment below and let me know what you want to see on the next video. Peace out.